Hey everyone, Needleburst here. So I'm gonna do a quick video on what I think the best talents on Anduin is. I know there's a lot of hype around him. I think that Anduin right now, with the current talents he has, he seems like a middle of the pack healer. But he has a lot of skill expression, and I think that it'll quickly get separated between who the really good Anduin players are and who are not. So I'm just gonna go over the talents that I think are the best. So level 1, I think Bold Strategy is the best talent that you could take on Anduin. Reason why is Flash of Heal by itself isn't really like the best talent, but with different synergies in his talent pool, Pursued by Grace and Renew together actually do a lot together. For instance, at the 4th tier, if you take Inner Fire, it basically augments both your other level 1 talents that you have chosen because you took Bold Strategy, which gives you both. So basically, every time you auto attack, you are getting a heal on everybody, and also at the same time, when you're auto attacking, it activates a hot based off of a Renew's passive effect. And Inner Fire, which increases your attack speed and basic attack range, basically boosts both of these talents. So the attack speed and the range helps you get the 61 health every time from Pursued by Grace, and just auto attacking once gets you the Renew effect. The other two choices on this tier aren't too good. Moral Compass basically requires you to hit the very end of the Divine Star on the enemies, which is a little bit conditional, and Holy Reach just doesn't have enough of a potential effect to be too useful. So moving on to the level 7 tier. So these two talents aren't that bad. So casting a heal on someone else heals Anduin. This is honestly decently good. The number is just a little low, that's why I don't like it. Power Word Shield expires pretty quickly. Hitting a Divine Star isn't hard on enemies. It's just having a passive shield that doesn't last that long doesn't sound like the best. Blessed Recovery seems like the best choice right now because in the situations where you're losing more than 8% life at once, what do you think is occurring? You're probably getting dove or getting hit by like a large poke spell that you want to recover quickly, and you're probably not going to be near the fountain when you're taking a large amount of poke spells. What makes this talent rise above the other two is the 10-second cooldown. A 10-second cooldown on a poke recovery spell or an all-in recovery spell, if you can make it out, seems extremely strong. Level 10, the choice is obviously not really there between Light Bomb and Holy Word Salvation. It's basically like a super saint. So I think that Holy Word Salvation is much better than Light Bomb. I think there's some niche situations where if you're snowballing really hard and don't have too much CC, Light Bomb can be decent. Also on maybe hyper carries where you want to, Illidan, you want to give him a big shield and you know he's going to be diving into a lot of melee characters based on their team comp, like a Battered Assault Illidan. This can be pretty good, but overall, Holy Word Salvation is just such a valuable talent, You do have to stand still and channel it, but at the same time, it's only 0.5 seconds that it can be interrupted, which is really short. And I'll go over how I play Anduin after I go over all the talents. So moving on, we have Push Forward. Reason why I like this talent the best out of these three is Divine Star traveling granting movement speed is like okay, but the thing is we're not really like going any talents that augment the Divine Star too much. We're just basically kind of using it to get its base value um, as a talent. Enchant Boots line speed's okay, but I feel like this is going to cause people to use the D more sparingly when it should be used in a way that just to save someone's life. You shouldn't be like holding it that often, and I feel like this is going to cause you to create bad habits. And at the same time, this is an 80-second cooldown. So more often than not, you're not going to be getting 15% movement speed. More often, you're going to be getting 5%. Now moving on to the talent that I like the most. So this has synergy with the 1 and 4 tier. Obviously, because you want to be moving fast, it becomes easier to proc these two effects. And also getting a range and attack speed boost helps you, get a lot of auto attacks off to get the movement speed. So it's pretty good. And you start feeling it when you get basically 3 to 4, 3, 4, 5. You feel kind of quick. And what this talent does is You can't see it because we're not in a real team fight. It's just this is just practice mode. But what you can do is when you've got the movement speed, you can quickly back up to make sure you ensure the channel 1 flash of heal. Especially when we move to the 16th tier, which I'm going to talk about in a second, which I take inner focus. I'll go over all the talents too though. When you go inner focus and the regular Q, because you're going to be using Q twice, having the 15% movement speed or even 9 to 15 is really crucial for getting the channel time off on both your heals. So moving on to the 16th tier. So this talent just isn't that good because you have to switch your target and that might not always be optional, and the reward is just refunding 40% of your cooldown. Why I don't think this is good is there's already a channel time on your Q. Having a reduced cooldown on it constantly isn't really the best on an ability that's not really, the main reason that makes Anduin good. Like, for instance, the reason Anduin's good is because he has a lot of synergies between his talents that also provide a lot of healing. So Holy Nova, the numbers on this ability don't seem too good. Also, part of the ability is that when he catches it, it explodes. You're kind of going to be bringing this ability back to your allies most of the time, and it won't really be doing the damage effect unless your teammates are getting dove. So this isn't going to be getting too much value on the damage side, and this is at level 20. It's only healing you for 219, so it's not really quite optimal. Now moving on to the two talents that I think might be the best at this tier, potentially. So inner focus basically resets your flash of light and also increases the amount by 40%. So what makes this talent actually pretty good is the passive effect it has attached to it. Damaging enemy heroes with Divine Star reduces its cooldown by 10 seconds. What this basically means is that if you just hit 2 people, which is extremely easy with Divine Storm, you basically just get a full reset. So imagine I want to get optimal healing outcome. I will use 2, and then I'll loop around here. Oh, I had toggle cooldowns on, whoops. But I'll basically heal twice, and then I'll use my W. It's basically off cooldown, and I could use it again. And that basically means inner focus can be literally your Divine Star cooldown always. So that makes the inner focus very strong. I know a lot of people are, going like W talents. I don't think it's that good. Another option is Lightwell. The reason I don't like Lightwell, and I thought it would be the best talent on the tier when I saw it originally, is the radius is really small. It's basically like around this big. So it's just a really small radius, and I guarantee you, in high-level situations, your team's going to be positioning and focusing on their own gameplay, so they won't really be standing in your light well. So that's what makes inner focus the best choice. Now, moving on to the 20 tier. So honestly, the choices on this tier are all actually pretty good. At the beginning, I thought they were all kind of bad, but Light of the Stormwind, the 5% increase max health healing isn't really that good. But in some potential situations, you're basically going to be using Holy Word Salvation when you're losing a team fight, and it's kind of like a worst case scenario where your team's basically getting dove and you guys are losing the fight. Okay, I have to drop Holy Word Salvation. The reason why Light of the Stormwind is good is because in those specific scenarios, after this runs out, getting 40% movement speed might make the difference between 1 or 2, even potentially 2 people living in a team fight by running away, because 40% is a lot of movement speed, and it's 3 seconds long, which is a decent amount. Glyph of Faith is also a pretty decent talent. If you took the Enchant Boots line speed at 13, Glyph of Faith even provides additional value because you'll probably have the 15% movement speed a lot more often. I think this is kind of a niche talent though, even though it's really good. And what I mean by that is once you get used to using the Leap of Faith constantly, you'll realize that there's certain enemy heroes or compositions that will make the Leap of Faith more valuable. For instance, like a dive comp where you have like a Protect the X hero and they don't have too much mobility, Glyph of Faith gets insanely more value in those situations. Moving on, Varian's Legacy. I feel like this is the worst talent on the tier. Originally, I thought that Anduin gets basically healed for all 50% of his auto attack damage and the burn. He's only just healing for the burn damage, so this talent is just not that good. Reason for taking it is if they have very slow damage and you just want to augment your level 1 damage, level 1 healing from Pursued by Grace, because The overtime damage that it deals procs this talent as well, so it's pretty good. Also, like a lot of the talents we're taking synergize with it, but overall the effect isn't that good. So the talent I chose is Desperate Prayer, and this has synergy with the movement speed, because basically if you need to get a Desperate Prayer off, you want to position yourself in a good position before you use the Desperate Prayer, and then get it off. And the reason for this is you have to kneel for 2 seconds, so it's really easy to get killed in between. So generally, like you're in the middle of a team fight, and you're getting all of your heals off, and you basically walk into a good position, and then boom, you get your heal. See, now I'm in a safe spot. I'm like far behind the person who's actually getting attacked, so I can't be turned on at that exact scenario. So I'm just going to use the spells how I think that you would basically use it with this build. It's basically you're constantly auto attacking, using your W on cooldown, constantly moving back and forth because you have a high auto attack range, and in between auto attacks you can get some heals off. You see how I'm using an auto attack between every Q, because it basically procs the renewal heal, so that's pretty important. And you can position yourself away from teammates when you want to use W, and also gather back around. You'll have enough time, so that's like kind of important, because you might want to position yourself in a way where you can basically hit 2 people to proc your inner focus, like for instance like this. And I still got that heal. Did you see how far I was when I used that W? I was over here, and I was able to still get the W heal. So that's pretty important. And then I'll help you get big heals. Now I have like the big movement speed. Pretend this person was a teammate in the game and they're about to die. I just dropped the big heal. Generally, you want to be using Holy Word Salvation in worst case scenarios. It's kind of like one of the best ultimates in the game, in my opinion. I know it has a short cooldown, but I think in the future this will get moved to 100 to 120 seconds. But overall, it's basically like, worst case scenario when like everybody's dying, you just pop it. But that's basically it. If you get used to, weaving in your auto attacks and, maximizing the ability of your cooldowns, not your basic abilities, but basically Inner Focus, Desperate Prayer, and Holy Word Salvation, I think that Anduin rises from a middle of the pack healer to one of the best. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Ana, for instance, but he has some potential to become one of the top healers. And I think his numbers are actually decently good. At the beginning I thought they were pretty low, but overall his numbers are quite decent, considering that his W's AoE, and Holy Word Salvation itself provides so much pure healing on its own because it's max health. But yeah, that'll wrap up this video. Thanks for watching.